Good morning, y'all. Hope you're doing well today. So I had posted on my community tab that I'm going to be doing a breakdown. It'll be my first official movie breakdown through the lens of the hero's journey and archetypal psychology. In other words, all the characters in the movie, we can view them as, and I'm not trying to say this is Disney's intention, I don't know, but just the fact that we see these movies, like a lot of the famous Disney movies, it's almost like if you do the research, you can find old folklore and fairy tales that have just been regenerated and renewed and refreshed through these movies. A lot of times it's like the storyline is basically the same, and so it's just refashioned for today's time, right? So that we can relate to it and therefore extract meaning and you know, just resonate with it, right? So what's interesting is once you gain an understanding of the hero's journey and archetypal psychology, you see it in a lot of places: movies, music, just those are the two primary things that come to mind. But the most impactful is when you see it in your own life. And what I have done is I have I've entered a season in my life where I'm spending time, you know, a lot of time alone, reflecting on my life and wanting to make sense of things that I've experienced. And that has been the motivation for me to dig deep and just try to make sense of things. And in doing so, that's what led me to learning about the hero's journey and archetypal psychology. And I'm certainly not an expert, let me just say that. So I don't have a deep understanding of it yet. It's of great interest to me, okay? And so I just thought, you know, as I'm exploring it and just learning about it a little bit along the way, why not share it with you all, you know? But I just want to make it clear that I'm not an expert by any means. But I hope that you still find value in what I present to you. So I'm excited about breaking down this movie, Beauty and the Beast. I watched it over the weekend with my daughter, and it had been many years since I had seen it. And it just really, you know, it brought a lot of things to light for me. It's like watching it all over again with this new understanding that I have. It's like I can totally see these patterns of the soul's journey that we can all relate to at some point in our life, when we get to this point where we feel like we're literally waking up, you know, like when the fog has lifted, the veil is torn, whatever you want to say. Once you're coming into some deep understanding about this reality and your path, your personal growth journey, once you get to that place, you see everything differently. And so I just want to share that with you all, and but I want to take some time putting that presentation together. So in the meantime, I want to bring you a different presentation this morning, and I hope that you find value in it as well. So I have this book here, and I haven't actually read it either. A lot of my books that I've read over the years, I've got them put up somewhere, and I've had a few stragglers that made it into other boxes, you know, when I moved a while back, and I've been able to retrieve those, and I've started sharing those with you. But there's others that I don't know what happened to them, and I know that I wouldn't have just gotten rid of them. You know, there's certain books that you just, they resonate with you so much you don't want to just give them away, you know, or donate them or whatever. But anyway, so I have all these new books too, so they're just easy to grab and share with you all. But this is one of them, right? The Inner Tradition of Yoga. And you guys know that I do yoga. I've shared that with you all, and I'm kind of in a transition phase right now. I was going to class on a regular basis, and I just kind of I had some things come up with scheduling in my life, and it kind of interfered with that. So I still practice yoga, I just don't do it quite as often as I would like to, but it is still part of my life. And to me, it's just very beneficial physically for your body, I feel incredible. Just a huge difference in my flexibility and just overall energy and strength is a big part of it when I am practicing on the regular. So yes, and I don't think it has to be made into you know, part of your spiritual beliefs unless you choose for it to be a part of that. That's just my experience and opinion there. But this book, what I did today is what I like to do, I share with you all, is I like to just open it up to a random page and read and just see, you know, is there a message for me, and consequently for you guys, you know, in doing so. And I found something that's really interesting. It's talking about something called the yamas, okay? And this is, again, this is all new to me, but in the back of the book there's a glossary of the Sanskrit terms, okay? So it says yama means abstention, self-control, restraint, and external discipline. And then it says from yam, Y-A-M, meaning to restrain. So you know, life teaches us that self-control is very important in a lot of ways, you know, whether it's your diet and making sure you're, you know, making wise choices with, you know, your foods, and restraining yourself from indulging in unhealthy foods, or whether it's just, you know, with regards to your lifestyle. Self-control is very important, right? So a lot of times, let me just preface this discussion by saying this. I feel like a lot of times it's just kind of habit, or just a normal human tendency to blur the lines between religion or spiritual belief and philosophy. And I just want to encourage you not to do that, because they're two different things. They're two different things. And that's why there can be people of different belief systems and religions who all agree on this one particular philosophy or outlook on life, right? Even though their spiritual beliefs and religions are different. So they're two different things. And so a lot of what we cover on my channel is philosophy. It's related to psychology, the psyche, and philosophy as well. And to me, when you are a spiritual person at all, it's kind of like you can't leave spirituality out altogether. It's just interwoven so much in our lives that you can't discuss psychology and philosophy without mentioning an element of the numinosity of our existence. You know what I mean? But I do have my own very strong personal faith, and again, I just I feel like we, in the spirit of unity and not wanting to perpetuate more division, because this, Lord knows, this reality is just chock full, which is kind of a weird saying. Chock, is it chock? I don't know. I've always heard it that way. Chock full. It's just packed. Basically, our reality is packed with so many aspects that perpetuate division amongst us. It's like, why do that? You know what I mean? You're never going to help another person by forcing your beliefs on them in a manner that's, you know, basically saying, you know, you're wrong and I'm right. It just doesn't work that way. So while I have a very strong faith, I feel like the only way to really coexist together in a healthy way is to respect one another. And so that's why I don't just present my own personal beliefs in such a way that it's just like this is the end all be all. I put it out there sometimes just because I feel like maybe somebody might benefit from it, you know, or want to hear that. But just know that I appreciate you coming to hear the message, and I just hope that it's valuable for you no matter what your beliefs are, okay? So, but we're just going to be reading through this through the spirit of philosophy, okay? And so that hopefully it can benefit anybody and everybody, no matter what your beliefs are. So the yamas, I thought that was really interesting. It's just kind of a way to approach life with a particular mindset of being mindful. You know, a lot of times yoga is associated with just being mindful, just being aware. And in other words, you're not living so much from your unconsciousness. It's just you're making an observable, real material effort to operate as consciously as possible. You know what I mean? So it's just trying to make that effort. You're acknowledging we all have an unconscious aspect, but we're trying our best to become as self-aware as we can, so that we can be our best self out in the world for ourselves and our loved ones and everyone, our community, right? So yamas, yes, with regards to self-control, right, to restrain. And before I dive into this book, let me share this with you. I thought this was really interesting. So I did a quick search. You know, I thought, I wonder if the yamas in themselves are the yamas just alone, let's say that, are associated with other religions, and they are, but I thought I found this, I had to share it with you all. It says, is Yama, not the yamas, but is Yama a Hindu or a Buddhist? Okay, this was just from Wikipedia. This is so interesting. It says Yama, the Hindu god of death and lord of Naraka or hell. He was subsequently adopted by Buddhist, Chinese, Tibetan, Korean, and Japanese mythology as the king of hell. And I thought, okay, this has layers and layers. Just reading that right there, I thought to myself, this has layers and layers and layers of things that we could just dive into deep. And I'm just going to touch on a few of those aspects that came to my mind when I read that right there, okay? First of all, in the hero's journey, it's in the underworld where all the work is done, where the hero is transformed, where it's related to psychologically an ego death, where it's related to coming face to face with our own personal shadow, what Carl Jung called the shadow, right? Our shadow self, the parts of us that we deem undesirable, that we're ashamed of, that are our faults or whatever, however you want to call it. It's like that's the part that we try not to think about, that we try to keep shoved into our unconsciousness, right? The parts of us that we deny. Which that's what a narcissistic type person does 24/7. They don't want to do any work, right? The work to dig in there and find it and heal and you know, just become their best self. They don't want to do that, right? So we all have faults. We're all imperfect. We all have an unconscious aspect, right? But in the hero's journey, going into the underworld is the metaphorical, how do I want to say this? It's basically metaphorical for going deep into those dark recesses of our psyche, to pull this stuff up to the front, to work it out, okay? So because that is such a difficult actual process, it can rock a person's world and just shake it up like crazy and be very distressing. It can feel like during that process, it's like you're mentally, emotionally, spiritually in a state of Hades, like you're in hell. So I thought when I read that, the Yama, right, that it's symbolic of the god of hell, I thought, wow, that, you know, how synchronistic is that through the lens of the hero's journey and thinking of the underworld, okay? Now, another part of that I want to mention, you can look into it deeper if you have interest, is the yamas in general are with regards to restraint, right? Self-control, restraint. And I can't remember where I read this or saw this. I think I was watching this very in-depth philosophical video on YouTube. It's been several weeks ago, maybe even months ago. I think that's where I saw this. But it was talking about I don't know what you call it, if it's Satanism or what, but it's people who basically knowingly regard, you know, the devil as their god, right? Okay, which if you've ever seen little news clips like I have throughout the years, where there's like some controversy because some statue was erected in somebody's town and it's satanic and everybody gets all upset about it and there's a big uproar, it's like when they interview those people about that, they'll be like, it's not what you think, you know, it's not evil, it's not what you think, right? But there are people who believe, who worship the devil, they openly, they do. And so this little clip I saw, I think it was a YouTube video, was explaining something with regards to, I think it was like a myth or a fairy tale or folklore that was exemplary of those beliefs of those who follow the devil openly. And it was talking about this man and woman who to honor the devil were like laying side by side, like on this raft down a river, which, you know, a river is very symbolic, and they were totally stripped of clothes, right? And they were had this great desire for one another, but they just exercised this extreme restraint that they would just go to their graves without touching one another. And that just stuck with me. Out of that whole thing I watched, because I watched more, that piece just stuck with me, and I thought, that's in total opposition of what the Bible says. The Bible says to be fruitful and multiply, see? So there you have this total opposition of what the Bible says. So, but then again, through the Christian lens, you know, the Bible is talks about just self-control in general as an honorable thing. So, you know, obviously we know that black and white thinking is never healthy, that there's a lot of gray areas to everything, every single thing, philosophy, religion, spirituality, our reality, whatever it is, there's nuances. That's reality, and we understand that. But I just wanted to point that out. All that stuff right there with regards to the yamas, which I'm going to share with you in a minute what they are, there's a list, as well as the meaning of yama, which is restraint, self-control, and the god called Yama, which is supposedly the Lord of Hell, and how all that kind of, you know, ties in together. And there's so many coincidences there, or synchronicities, whatever you want to say. There's these patterns you find where there are links to things, and it's like putting this big huge puzzle together. It's just like never ending really, when you like to just dig in deep and try to find the truth of things. So I think I just said truth, but truth is what I meant. I'm still making up, y'all. I still got my coffee here. But anyway, I just want to share that with you. It's stuff for you to think about and to look into if you have interest. But what I want to share in this book is very thought-provoking too. And so let's dive into this, and we'll just stop and have some talking points along the way, okay? So this is, if you have the book, it's the paperback on page 64. This is in the chapter 7, called The Yamas Beyond Dualism, okay? So this is beyond the black and white thinking, okay? So now we're just getting into those nuances, right? It says on page 64, any project, or I would say any projection, of the ego is a facsimile of direct experience. The ego is always trying to become something other than it is. The yamas are an antidote to these ambitions. There is no world beyond our actions and their eventual effects. No matter how much we try to create something more lasting, utopian, or removed from relational reality, frustrated by this reality, we create otherworldly metaphysics, thinking that practice takes us away from this very world, when in fact it only connects us more deeply to the inherent non-duality of self and world. So take that as you will. I'm certainly, again, never sharing anything that I'm trying to assert before you is absolute truth. It's just stuff to think about, okay? That was very rich in itself, that paragraph. I could take this and run with it. We could talk 30 minutes on that one paragraph. Or I could, anyway. But it's like, it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to think about. I'm not going to go into it right now. I want to keep reading, because I don't want this to be super long either. So, all right, so over on page 65, I'm going to pick up about halfway down. It says, there is no way to act that will be judged as ultimately pure or essentially violent except by those around us. Let me pause here and share this with you. This is something you might want to keep in your mind as we go through the rest of this presentation today. It's just a lens to look through as we're reading this stuff. Sorry, I like to keep my eyes open around me, you know. I just think it's safe to do so. But yes, something to keep in mind is, you know, in the Garden of Eden, it was said, you know, the serpent told Eve, if you eat this fruit, you will become as God, right? Or like a god. And it was all about the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So there's definitely a tie in here, big time, big time. There's some kind of connection here, okay? So it's where we think that we can be the judge of what's right and wrong, when in reality, you know, Jesus is like, all of you fall short, you know? All of humanity is going to fall short, period. No matter, you know, at your best and however hard you try, you can't win your own, what's the word I want to look for? It's not redemption. It's, I'm losing this word right now, but it's like redemption. It'll come to me probably later after I stop filming. That's how it works, you know? But in other words, you can't redeem yourself, right? You can't excuse yourself. Only God can do that. And we're all imperfect, right? So, but there's like this human desire, and it's really strong in a narcissistic type person to want to just cling tightly to the idea of perfection in themselves and expecting that out in the world. That's why they're so easily offended. That's why a person, anybody, not they, but anyone can be so easily offended and triggered. It's just like on the spectrum, you know, we all can be offended. We all can be triggered. It's just different degrees, you know, depending on a person's state. But it's like, it's in relation to your level of expectations out in the world, you know. And so, yeah, I thought that opening paragraph, you know, it just basically says how, you know, no matter how much we try to create something more lasting, utopian, or removed from relational reality, and it talks about how we get frustrated with that, you know, and we just start to fantasize to some degree, you know, about you know, something that will take us away from the imperfection of this world, you know. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, in other words, we're all trying to place ourselves in that position of being having the authority to judge, and it's just not our place, you know. And that's where humility comes in. So again, page 65, there is no way to act that will be judged as ultimately pure or essentially violent except by those around us. The yamas are designed to open us up to those around us by motivating us to contemplate our actions of body, speech, and mind, both internally and externally. By being sensitive to the effects of our actions, we open to the greater good. The yamas teach us about karma and the consequences of our intentions. When we do not understand the workings of karma, ethical restraints are not treated as psychological tools, but rather as commandments or rules. Okay, so it's just talking about, hey, look, again, it's kind of like saying, I acknowledge that I have an unconscious part of my psyche. I acknowledge that I'll never be perfect, and I'm embracing that, I'm accepting it, and I'm just trying to do the best I can with what I'm aware of in the moment. You know what I mean? Just this is in relation to becoming self-aware, okay? It says, again, it is worth emphasizing that the ethical practices outlined in this first limb, which there's supposedly, I think, 8 limbs, and I haven't gotten into that yet, are not to be thought of as commandments that will be enforced by an all-powerful God. The non-dualist traditions, which include yoga, most forms of Buddhism, some schools of Advaita, Vedanta, and Taoism, I don't know if I'm saying all that right, don't operate within a system of rights and wrongs. A system of right and wrong would turn karma into an aspect of a judging God who rewards or punishes. But this is not what underpins these non-dualist traditions. Karma is not related to judgment or punishment, excuse me. It is only retributive only in its effect on us psychologically. This was really interesting, not metaphysically. I want you to remember that because we're going to talk about it. It is retributive only in its effect on us psychologically, not metaphysically. To believe in cause and effect is not the same as believing in good and evil. Rather, it is a belief that actions create reactions. I want to pause right here. I think this might be a good time to say this. There's a movie by where it has Robin Williams in it, and I can't remember the name of it. I'll put it in the description. But it's about heaven and hell. It's where he's married, and I think his wife is an artist, if I'm not mistaken, and I think they have a child, and I think there's a tragedy. I don't remember. I think the child may die or something like that in the movie, but the wife, this has been like 10 or 15 years, probably 15 years plus since I've seen this movie, but the wife, if I'm not mistaken, falls into this deep depression, okay? And I don't know what happens, but she dies. I don't know if she, you know, commits suicide or what, but he winds up, I don't know if he dies or if he's able to, like, astral project or what happens, but anyway, the movie's really incredible. It's kind of depressing, but it's really an incredible movie. It's like where he goes to try to pull her out of hell in the movie. And the reason this made such an impression on me, this movie, is because it's showing you through a lens kind of like what we're talking about. Like hell in the movie was represented by this state of her own mental state of being stuck in this just torturous, depressive, hopeless state. Okay, and he was trying to pull her out of that into the beautiful heaven, which it showed you that too. And I remember it being like paint, and like he would just run through the fields of flowers, and it was gorgeous, and it was like splashing. Every time he'd take a footstep, it's like paint would splash or something like that. That's how I remember it anyway. It was really cool. And so it was showing you that contrast, but it was presented in a way that it was like all here. Okay, it was very thought-provoking. So I'm reminded of that movie when I'm reading this, right? Like we create our own heaven or hell, which I think there's a Bible verse that says it has something to do with that. I'll drop it in here if I can find it. But yeah, to believe in cause and effect is not the same as believing in good and evil. Rather, it is a belief that actions create reactions. Oh, it says something about the kingdom of heaven is within. I think that's what that Bible verse says, right? So when we attend to karma, we are paying attention to our actions in the here and now. From there, we begin to see that we have the potential for awakening and also the potential for shutting down. Again, just blocking off that beautiful, luminous, creative force, just stopping it off, right? And I know a lot of times we blame it on someone else. And I'm not saying that's wrong, like a controlling person or a manipulator or whatever, but we have to wake up to the power that we have inside of us to understand that that's only effective if we let it be so. And a lot of times we let it be so out of love. We think that we are putting love into action by allowing this person to repress us, but that's not love. We have to understand what love is, okay, at some point. Good and bad, heaven and hell, no longer become external or idealistic places or principles, but rather psychological potentials. Instead of a divine that determines what is good or bad, we recognize in ourselves the ability to wake up and also the ability to return to a life of habit. And I think that's important when you're thinking about, you know, being stuck. What Ross Rosenberg talks about, like stuck in the mud. He's got this saying, I'm probably gonna butcher it here, something about don't wrestle in the mud. You're gonna get dirty if you do it, plus the pig likes it. You know, the one that drug you into the mud. If you engage with someone like that, it's not gonna, the only way to win with a person like that who wants to, you know, get you caught up in drama is to just exit and not engage, you know, and become indifferent. That's the only way you can win with a person like that. So, but yeah, you can certainly feel stuck for a long time. So returning to a life of habit through that lens is a good thing, you know, since we can react with joy or with anguish. When we see these two energies waking up or closing down, operating in the mind and body at any given moment, we begin to see how important it is that we meditate on our actions of body, speech, and mind. It is important to be responsible for everything you do. I would say it's important to recognize your power, what's within your power truly, and then just act on it, right? It is important to be responsible for everything you do and to see clearly the effects of your actions. My first yoga teacher said when I asked her the definition of karma, what you do right now counts. So I thought that was really interesting. So this is just something for you to think on today, to help keep the wheels turning, to hopefully inspire you to approach every day just being observant of yourself first and foremost, and then also everything around you and all the others in your life. Just helping you to stay in a more awakened state where you do recognize what's within your control, so that you can take intentional action to better your life, and then once you get to a good place, also to affect the lives of others in a positive manner. So I hope that this has been informative and enjoyable for you to listen to. I thank you for coming along today to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.